The Crystal Lake Country Club dining room buzzed with the familiar chaos of the Patterson family gathering. 53 relatives spread across 8 tables, their voices bouncing off the vaulted ceiling as servers navigated between chairs with practiced precision. I sat at the far end of the main table, picking at my salmon while my cousin David held court at the center, his voice carrying over everyone else's. "So it's settled then," David announced, standing with his wineglass raised. "Patterson family reunion. The lake house. Entire summer. Just like Grandpa used to do it." Heads nodded around the room. Aunt Patricia beamed from her seat beside him. 50 people confirmed so far, David continued, pulling out his phone to check his notes. "I've already started booking the cabins. 3 months, June through August." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. I set it down carefully, watching. Uncle Tom stood up, clapping David on the shoulder. "That's my boy, keeping the family traditions alive. Your grandfather would be so proud." "The deposit system is simple," David said, gesturing to Aunt Patricia. $500 per family. Mom's got the envelopes. That covers maintenance, utilities, supplies, everything we need to make this the summer of a lifetime. Aunt Patricia rose, reaching into her oversized purse. She pulled out a stack of manila envelopes, each one labeled with a family name. "I've already collected from the Hendersons, the Martins, and the Coopers. Everyone else see me before you leave tonight." Cousin Jennifer squealed from 3 tables over. "Oh my God, I haven't been to the lake house since I was 12. Remember the bonfire nights? The boat races? And the fishing tournaments," Uncle Robert added, his eyes distant with nostalgia. "Your grandfather made the best blueberry pancakes on Saturday mornings." David soaked in the attention, his chest puffed out. "I've created a spreadsheet for cabin assignments. The main lodge sleeps 12. Then we've got the north cabins, the south cabins, and the boathouse quarters. Everyone gets their own space." My mother caught my eye from across the table. She looked away quickly, her expression tight. She hadn't spoken to me directly in 40 minutes. "What about Maya?" my younger cousin Sophie asked, pointing at me. "Which cabin is she getting?" The conversations around us dimmed slightly. David's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. "Maya won't be joining us," he said smoothly. "This reunion is for family members who actually contribute to the family, who show up, who participate in family life." The words landed with surgical precision. Several relatives shifted in their seats. My Aunt Margaret at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. "That's a bit harsh, David," she said quietly. "Is it?" David's voice took on an edge. "When was the last time Maya came to Christmas? Or Thanksgiving? Or any family event? She's too busy with her careers to remember where she came from." Aunt Patricia jumped in, her voice sharp. "The lake house is for people who appreciate family history, who honor what your grandfather built. Not for people who think they're too good for us." I took a sip of my water, my hand steady despite the heat rising in my chest. Around us, relatives found their plates suddenly fascinating. My mother finally spoke, her voice barely audible. "Maya has made her choices." "Exactly," David said, turning back to the room with renewed energy. "So, who wants to talk cabin assignments?" The Henderson family requested the north side because of the sunrise views. Conversations resumed, louder now, as if volume could cover the awkwardness. Aunt Patricia moved between tables with her envelopes, collecting checks. The energy in the room shifted to excited planning. I pulled out my phone, checking the time. 7:47 p.m. The dinner had been scheduled to end at 8:30, but at this rate, people would linger for hours discussing David's grand plan. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from an unknown number. "Miss Patterson, this is James Morrison from Summit Property Management. Attempted contact to your lakeshore property again today. 3 vehicles, approximately 15 people. Security cameras captured images. Should we proceed with trespassing protocol?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. "Stand by. Situation resolving tonight." David was now showing people something on his laptop, photos of the property from the look of it. Guests crowded around him, pointing and exclaiming. "The dock is even bigger than I remembered," someone said. "And the main lodge is that a new roof. Completely renovated 2 years ago." David said with authority. "New roof, new windows, updated electrical. The place is pristine." He wasn't wrong about that. The renovations had cost me $340,000. Aunt Patricia returned to David's side, a satisfied smile on her face. $12,000 collected so far. Another 15 families promised to bring checks next week. David nodded approvingly. Perfect, that gives us a solid operating budget. I'm thinking we do a big grocery run the week before, stock all the cabins. Don't forget the boats. Uncle Tom interjected. We'll need to get those engines serviced, and probably rent a few jet skis for the younger kids. Already on the list, David assured him. I've got contacts at the marina. We'll have everything ready by Memorial Day weekend. My phone buzzed again. This time, a call. The screen displayed Summit Property Management. I stood quietly, my chair scraping slightly against the floor. No one noticed. They were too engrossed in David's presentation. Excuse me, I said to no one in particular. I walked toward the restroom hallway, putting the phone to my ear. Hello, Miss Patterson, James Morrison. I hope I'm not interrupting your evening. Not at all. What's the situation? The group returned to the property approximately 20 minutes ago. They're inside the main lodge. Our security team is monitoring via cameras. Would you like us to make contact? I glanced back at the dining room. Through the doorway, I could see David gesturing animatedly, the laptop screen glowing. No, I said. I'll handle it personally. But I need you to do something for me. Of course. Come to the Crystal Lake Country Club. Main dining room. I'll text you the details. Bring the property documentation file. The complete one. There was a pause. The complete file. That's quite extensive. I know. How quickly can you get here? 15 minutes. Perfect. When you arrive, ask for the Patterson party. I'll make sure you're directed to our table. Understood. Is there anything specific you need me to address? Just follow my lead, I said. And James, dress for impact. Always do, Miss Patterson. I ended the call and returned to the dining room. The energy had only intensified. David had moved on to discussing activities, volleyball tournaments, kayaking expeditions, a possible talent show night. We should do a family history wall. Jennifer suggested. Photos from all the old reunions. Remember when Grandpa used to make us all write in that journal? The memory journal. Aunt Patricia clasped her hands together. I wonder if it's still there, in the main lodge library. If it is, we'll find it. David promised. This summer is about honoring Grandpa's legacy, bringing the family together the way he always wanted. I slid back into my seat. My mother glanced at me, then quickly away. She knew something was different, even if she couldn't identify what. The servers began clearing dessert plates. Uncle Robert called for another bottle of wine.
Oh,
The room had taken on the warm, fuzzy quality of a successful family gathering. David's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned slightly, then typed a response. Marina's confirming the boat service schedule, he announced. Everything's falling into place. Aunt Patricia had her envelope spread on the table now, organizing checks by family name. $27,000, she said, doing quick math in her head. Once we get the remaining families, we'll have almost 40,000. That'll cover everything beautifully. And if we're careful with the budget, David added, whatever's left over goes toward next year's reunion. Make this an annual tradition again. Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. The country club's front desk manager appeared in the doorway, scanning the room. Her eyes found mine. I gave a small nod. She approached our table, leaning down to speak quietly to Uncle Tom. Excuse me, sir. There's a gentleman here asking for the Patterson party. Says he has urgent business with Maya Patterson. Every head at the main table turned toward me. Uncle Tom frowned. Business? At a family dinner? I'll handle it, I said, starting to stand. No, David interjected, his voice carrying an edge of annoyance. If someone's here for you, they can wait. We're in the middle of family time. You know that thing you usually skip? A few uncomfortable laughs. Actually, I said, settling back into my chair. This is relevant to everyone. He can join us. David's frown deepened. Who is this person? James Morrison, Summit Property Management. The name meant nothing to most of the table, but I watched Aunt Patricia's expression flicker with something. Confusion, maybe concern. Property management, Uncle Tom asked. What's this about Maya? It's about the lake house, I said calmly. And David's reunion plans. The room went silent. Every conversation at every table died mid-sentence. David's face flushed. What are you talking about? Just let him join us, I said. I think everyone should hear what he has to say. The desk manager nodded and disappeared. A moment later, she returned with a tall man in his early 50s, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit. He carried a leather portfolio under his arm. James Morrison had the kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. His silver hair was perfectly trimmed, his shoes gleamed, and his expression was professionally neutral. "Good evening," he said, his voice measured and clear. "I apologize for the interruption. I'm James Morrison, Senior Property Manager for Summit Estate Management." He walked directly to where I sat, extending his hand. "Miss Patterson." I shook it. "James, thank you for coming on such short notice." "Of course." He pulled out the chair beside me and sat, placing the portfolio on the table. The leather was embossed with gold lettering. Summit Estate Management. Confidential client files. David found his voice. "I don't understand what's going on here." James turned to him with polite interest. "And you are?" "David Patterson. This is a private family dinner. I don't know what Maya told you, but Mr. Patterson," James interrupted gently, "I'm here because there's been a significant misunderstanding regarding property access and usage. My company has a responsibility to clarify these matters promptly." Aunt Patricia's face had gone pale. "Property access? What property?" James opened the portfolio, removing a document. "The Lakeshore Estate on Crystal Lake, commonly referred to as the Patterson Lake House. That's our family property," David said, his voice rising. "This has nothing to do with whatever company you represent." "Actually," James said, sliding the document across the table, "this has everything to do with my company. We've managed this property since 2019. Uncle Tom picked up the document, squinting at it. His face went slack. "What is this?" he whispered. "Property deed," James said. "Recorded with the county on August 14, 2019. The Lakeshore Estate, 15 acres including main lodge, 6 cabins, boathouse and dock facilities. Purchased for $2.8 million by Summit Holdings LLC." The silence was absolute. David snatched the document from Uncle Tom. His eyes scanned the page, darting back and forth. This can't be right." "I assure you it's completely legitimate," James said. "You can verify with the county recorder's office, or I can provide you with the title insurance documentation, the closing statement." "The closing statement? Who the hell is Summit Holdings?" David demanded. James glanced at me. I gave a slight nod. "Summit Holdings is a private investment entity," he said. "The sole owner and operator is Maya Patterson." You could have heard a pin drop. My mother's wine glass trembled in her hand. Aunt Patricia's mouth opened and closed without sound. Uncle Tom stared at me like I'd grown a second head. David's face cycled through several shades of red. "That's impossible. You don't have that kind of money. You work at some tech company doing whatever it is you do. You can't afford." "Miss Patterson is the founder and CEO of Horizon Analytics," James said. "The company went public in 2018. I believe the current valuation is somewhere around $800 million, though I'm not privy to the specific financial details." Uncle Robert actually laughed, a sharp disbelieving bark. No, that's ridiculous. Maya's never mentioned, because I never needed to," I said quietly. All eyes turned to me. I kept my voice level, calm. "The lake house was in foreclosure. Grandpa's estate couldn't cover the debts. The bank was going to auction it in 2019. I bought it." "You?" My mother finally found her voice. "You bought it? Why didn't you tell us?" "Would it have mattered?" I asked. "You all decided 6 years ago that I'd abandon the family, that I was too focused on my career to care about family traditions. Would knowing I owned the property have changed that?" No one answered. David's hands shook as he held the deed. "You're saying you own the lake house? The whole property?" "Yes." "For 6 years?" "Yes." Aunt Patricia's voice came out strangled. But we've been using it. We've had family gatherings there. I know, I said. I allowed it. I wanted the family to still have access to Grandpa's property, to maintain the traditions he cared about. Then what's the problem? David demanded. If you own it and you want us to use it, why is this guy here talking about misunderstandings? James cleared his throat. Because there's a difference between allowing family access and someone collecting deposits for unauthorized commercial use. The color drained from David's face. Our security system, James continued, pulling out another document, has flagged multiple instances of what appears to be rental activity. We have records of email communications. He glanced at the paper, where Mr. David Patterson has been accepting reservations and payments for property usage. I wasn't. David started. $27,000 collected tonight alone, I said, looking at the envelopes, still spread in front of Aunt Patricia. For a property you don't own, for access you don't have the authority to grant. Uncle Tom's voice was barely a whisper. Jesus, David, it's not like that, David said desperately. It's family. We're family. The deposits were just to cover expenses. Expenses for a property you have no financial responsibility for, James said. Which legally speaking constitutes fraud. The word hung in the air like smoke. Aunt Patricia grabbed her son's arm. David, what did you do? I didn't do anything wrong. His voice cracked. The lake house has always been family property. Just because Maya owned it. I finished for him, which she has for 6 years, which you knew if you'd bothered to check the property records, which you didn't, because you assumed I was still the failure you all decided I was. My mother, the security system, James said, has also recorded approximately 40 instances of property access over the past 3 years, some authorized family gatherings, which Miss Patterson approved, but many others, particularly in the last 8 months, that were not approved and appear to be related to Mr. Patterson's rental activities. He pulled out a tablet, turned it around. Security camera footage played, grainy but clear. David's car pulling up to the lake house. Groups of people I didn't recognize. Unloading bags, coolers, equipment. You've been renting it out? Uncle Robert asked, his voice hollow. David's jaw worked soundlessly. The going rate, James said, consulting his notes, appears to have been $2,000 per weekend for the main lodge, $800 per weekend for individual cabins. Our records show 17 separate rental transactions since January. I did the math in my head. Over $30,000, maybe more. Where did that money go, David? I asked quietly. He couldn't look at me. I had some business expenses. The startup costs For what? Aunt Patricia demanded. What startup? An event planning company, he mumbled. Corporate retreats, wedding venues. I was using the lake house as the flagship property to attract clients, to build a portfolio. The silence was suffocating. You were building a business, I said, on property you don't own, advertising it, taking bookings, accepting payments. I was going to tell you, David said desperately. I was going to offer to buy it from you. Once the business was established, once I had proof of concept. James shook his head slowly. Mr. Patterson, the property isn't for sale. It's Miss Patterson's private estate. The rental value alone, if she chose to rent it commercially, which she doesn't, would be $15,000 per weekend during peak season. You've been charging clients a fraction of that and pocketing the difference. We have the emails, James said. The booking confirmations, the payment records, all of it. Uncle Tom stood abruptly, his chair scraping. I need air. He walked away from the table. Several other relatives followed, their faces stunned. My mother sat perfectly still, staring at her hands. Aunt Patricia had tears streaming down her face. Maya, please, he's my son. He made a mistake, but he's family. You can't what? I asked. Press charges, report him to the authorities for fraud, sue for the unauthorized use of my property. Her face crumpled. I'm not going to do any of that, I said. Hope flickered in David's eyes. But, I continued, this ends now. James, what's the protocol for property access moving forward? He consulted his tablet. All existing access codes have been changed. New security protocols implemented. Only individuals on the authorized visitor list will be granted entry. And the authorized list currently includes only you, Miss Patterson. Gasps around the table. Wait, Jennifer said, tears in her voice. You're cutting all of us off. The whole family. I'm cutting off unauthorized access, I corrected. If people want to visit the property, they ask me directly, and I decide. That's not fair, someone muttered from another table. Fair, I turned to face the room. What's not fair is planning an entire summer reunion at a property you have no claim to. What's not fair is collecting deposits from family members under false pretenses. What's not fair is assuming that because I don't attend every holiday dinner, I've somehow forfeited my right to respect. No one spoke. The lake house is mine, I said clearly. I bought it to preserve Grandpa's legacy, to keep it in the family. But that doesn't mean it's available for anyone to use however they want, whenever they want. James stood, gathering his documents. Miss Patterson, is there anything else you need from me this evening? Just one more thing. I looked at Aunt Patricia. The deposits, all of them. They need to be returned to the families who paid them. Her hands shook as she reached for the envelopes. And David, I said, my voice hard, the money from your unauthorized rentals, every penny, you're going to calculate the total, and you're going to donate it to the Crystal Lake Conservation Fund, in Grandpa's name. His face was ashen. Maya, I don't have. Figure it out, I said. You have 2 weeks. James will send you the documentation of every rental we have recorded. If the numbers don't match what you donate, we'll have a very different conversation, one that involves lawyers. He nodded mutely. James extended his hand. Always a pleasure, Miss Patterson. I'll send the updated security protocols to your email tonight. Thank you, James. He nodded to the room and left. The silence he left behind was deafening. Slowly, people began gathering their things. No one looked at me. No one looked at David either. Aunt Patricia was crying openly now, shoving envelopes back into her purse with shaking hands. Uncle Tom returned to the table, his face grave. Maya, we owe you an apology. Multiple apologies. You do, I agreed, but I'm not interested in hearing them tonight. He nodded, accepting that. My mother finally spoke, her voice barely audible. When you bought the property, why didn't you tell us? Because I was tired, I said simply. Tired of being the disappointment, the one who didn't fit, the one who chose career over family. I didn't want to prove myself to you. I didn't want to watch you recalculate my worth based on my bank account. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. But I loved Grandpa, I continued. And I loved that property, so I saved it, I renovated it, I maintained it, and yes, I let the family use it, because that's what he would have wanted. And now, Uncle Robert asked quietly. Now I'm reassessing, I said. Who deserves access to the property? Who respects what it means? Who understands that family isn't just about showing up for the easy moments? I stood, collecting my purse. The lake house will still be there, I said. But if you want to visit, you ask me. You respect my property. You acknowledge that I'm not just some wayward family member who got lucky with money. I'm the person who cared enough to save the one thing you all claim to value. I turned to leave, then paused. David, 2 weeks. Don't make me ask twice. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. I walked through the dining room, past tables of stunned relatives. At the door I stopped and looked back one more time. For what it's worth, I said. I would have said yes to a family reunion, if anyone had bothered to ask. The door closed behind me with a soft click. Outside, the evening air was cool and clean. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Security protocols updated. Property sealed. Well handled, Miss Patterson. I smiled slightly, typing back, thank you. Send me the conservation fund details. I want to match David's donation, in your grandfather's name. in all our names, the family he believed we could be. I walked to my car, the weight I'd carried for 6 years finally lifting. The lake house was still there. Grandpa's legacy was safe, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd honored both.